Sanctuary, Heavenly Birthstones, Part 5, compiled by Shirley Jean Street and read by Wayne T. Street. When Jacob returned to Canaan from Haran, his youngest son Joseph was 6 years old, while his oldest boy, Reuben, would have been 12. The other 9 boys and 1 girl ranged in ages between 7 and 11. It should be stressed that these young people were clustered very closely in age. Without careful study, we tend to imagine that Joseph was very much younger than his brothers. But this, as we have noted, was not so. This is from the book The Conquerors by Dr. Leslie Harding. For the next 11 years in Canaan, the boys steadily grew. The crisis in their lives came suddenly and unannounced when Joseph was 17 and his eldest brother, Reuben, was 23. For several years, most of these adolescents had not behaved themselves as they knew they should have. But Joseph listened to his father's instructions and feared the Lord. He was more obedient to his father's righteous teachings than any of his brethren. He treasured his instructions and with integrity of heart loved to obey God. Joseph's brothers deliberately refused to heed their father's advice. Joseph often remonstrated with them, but his words seemed only to stir up their hatred. He then laid the matter before his father, hoping that his authority might reform them. This exposure to their wrongs enraged against him. They had observed their father's strong love for Joseph. Their envy grew into hatred and finally to murder. Discerning personality traits through observation, questionnaires, and assumptions is a curiosity that has fascinated people for many centuries. It was a similar interest that initially influenced this researcher's quest to learn about the 12 precious gems fastened to a breastplate worn by the high priest of Israel. God's original signs and symbols have lost much of their limelight and prophetic significance to intentional distractions that in themselves seem innocent enough. However, these subtle counterfeits definitely distract from the sacred symbols of God. Myths and superstitions that are associated with crystals are true examples of clever proxies for the sacred meanings God placed on the breastplate gemstones. Colors mentioned in the Bible have specific meaning. Note the 12 colors in the color wheel. Blue represents obedience. Purple represents royalty. Green represents hope. Red represents sacrifice. Gold represents faith. And white represents purity.